Good morning, video games.
Good morning.
Welcome to Filthy Casuals, a podcast about video games, hosted by three very kind and extremely knowledgeable boys. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tommy Daslow, and you may have had a little sneak peek into what his voice sounds like mere moments ago, but with me as per usual.
It's Ben Vanel here. I just felt bad that video games never answered you back with a nice, polite good morning.
True.
I've always thought of it as sort of like a school assembly setup, but I guess that is a classic call and response place, but where it's just sort of a figure of authority, in this case being Tommy, speaking to a figure of lesser status, in this case being every video game. Good morning, Tommy.
Exactly.
Daslow.
That's
Mega
it.
Man, Bubsy the Bobcat, Super Bonk, Aero the Acrobat. I want them all in unison.
Croc.
Good
Master
morning,
Chief.
Mr. Daslow.
And good morning also to a man who is at least on par with the authority of Tommy Daslow, maybe even higher. It's Mr. Adam Knox.
That's me. In golf terms, same par. 3 holes, each of us. Same par. Welcome everybody to the show. Something a bit different this week. Bit of a change in the old routine for this show over the last 9 years. How about some rumors about a new Nintendo console?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's
It's a bit of a
freshen
change
things
of
up.
pace.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
That's the annoying thing. About 3 weeks ago, maybe a bit longer, it became clear. It's like, well, they're not going to sneak in the announcement now before the end of the year, which means that, we are leaving ourselves wide open to closing out the year on another 3 or 4 weeks of rumors and leaks and speculation. Goody gumdrops.
At this point, at least, it's the sort of things like you get with phones where things are being manufactured and people, like third parties are having to manufacture things. So there's been a couple of things happen at the same time where someone filmed and released footage of what appears to be like the new Joy-Cons for the Switch 2. There's a little glimpse of the thing itself, I think, in there, but it's mainly focusing on the Joy-Cons, which look an awful lot like the original Switch ones.
Yeah.
Yep.
Slightly more like teardrop shaped at the ends, I guess, rather than rounded and squared in the same way. They're meant to use strong magnets as part of the attachment, and they have like bigger triggers when you're holding them sideways mode, as no one ever does. There's proper like sticking out, jutting triggers on the sides.
Yeah.
Those seem to be the main changes.
Quite awkward to me, but then, we haven't really seen much in terms of just like a 360 view of the console and the Joy-Con attached, right?
I assume it'll be sort of like the same thing that a lot of those handheld PCs have, where it'll kind of curve outward towards the body of the machine. So while you're gripping it, you won't really feel those things. They'll probably still be slid up against the machine.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like there'll be a big jutting out thing there. It'll be it looks like it's probably going to feel more like a natural grip to you when you're holding the machine, because the thing is significantly bigger based on all of this, because some of the other stuff that came out was like when a new phone shows up, there's like screen protectors and cases and stuff like that. The manufacturers have had to be given the dimensions to make these things based off of. So the direct comparison of the screen from like an original Switch screen protector to the Switch 2 one, it's significantly bigger.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
It's like 30 centimeters total, pretty much.
Yeah, there's some dimensions out there if people want to look it up.
Yeah.
And but it all lines up exactly with everything that has been being said for quite a while.
Yep.
So
I mean, I personally would love to have seen a version of the new console that is an option to have it without the detachable Joy-Con, because the Switch Lite that just has all the stuff kind of built into it, the sticks on it are a lot better for whatever reason, and like the form factor is able to be a bit better if you're not having to think about having to detach this stuff. And as you say, no one really plays it like that. Like if there was an option of having it all like happy to have it in the dock and pick up, but
Yep.
I really don't need to ever be sliding the controllers. It is nice to have been able to like change up the color of it when I've gotten new Joy-Con, but
And listen,
yeah.
what about when they release 1-2 Switch 2? What about then?
You mean-
You'll be missing
Wait.
out.
In about what?
they did, didn't
7
they?
years.
Everybody 1-2 Switch was the sequel, right?
Oh yeah,
There's
yeah,
1-2
yeah. That's what
Switch.
I'm thinking of.
But
There was
this'll be-
everybody 1-2 Switch.
Everybody 1-2 Switch 2. Two Switch 2.
Furious?
It'll just like, yeah,
Every
I
man
agree.
and their dog Switch.
Because the other benefit of the Switch Lite is you get the proper D-pad on it because they're not
Yes,
having to think
that's-
about making the 4 buttons.
Right, that too, yeah.
Yeah. Surely they
Nobody
dropped
makes a
this one with
D-pad like
fucking
Nintendo.
Switch Sports 2.
Maybe. I mean, they
Yeah.
did. You know, it didn't feel like Switch Sports lit the world on fire.
No.
Not in a Wii Sports way, obviously, which is probably an unfair bar to try and clear. But this is sport. You got to clear that bar.
There's so in this leaked video, it's like a Chinese social media website. This person's put up this like big sort of what would you call it? It's like just a promo video with a bunch of shit potentially from this. There is a screen grab or a moment where they show the old Switch, the Switch 2, and then something called the Switch 2 Max, which looks like it has a significantly bigger screen. The bezel is quite small or big, whichever one makes sense there. Like a bigger one, which maybe is sort of equivalent to like releasing the OLED at the same time as the original Switch, like having
Sure,
that Pro version.
I do feel like there were things where they were saying like, yeah, there'll be 2 versions of the Switch 2 at launch.
Yeah.
You know, it's all relatively unexciting stuff in some ways. I think the thing that most interested me in this, because like making a Switch 2 makes total sense and it seemed like that's the direction they're going. But the thing this person was saying, like, you know, they work in a manufacturing place. They know about these sorts of things. And they were saying like the volume that they're making right now wouldn't line up for a March release. They wouldn't have enough.
Yeah, right.
At the rate that they're making them. So much more likely to be later in the year. And all that Nintendo have said is that they will have announced it by the end of the financial year, which is March.
Right.
Yep.
Because I think
25.
well, the sort of revised projections like about 3 weeks ago, month ago, was a January announce for a March release. But I mean, that doesn't seem...
That's purely speculative.
Yeah.
And I think people just kind of at this point want that to be true because it's like, where it's been so long and we're sick of speculating, and the Switch is really kind of had a good year, really, for being
a good farewell tour.
seventh
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah,
definitely
some
a
good shit came out
final.
this year, but
Yeah, all very like, hey, this thing's kind of over. We're putting out these extra bits.
Yep,
Like
yep,
the
little
stuff
victory
I've
lap.
seen is because there's 6 more months for them to fill next year. If it's like it'd be June at least, and I think the March release thing was a lot, myself included, just going like, well, that's when the Switch 1 came out and that did pretty well. So why would they do it again?
Right.
But if it's like a March announce with a June plus release, then I've seen like Metroid Prime 2 remastered and just things like that will probably be the like unsatisfying little
fill it
corks
out.
that they'll have to
Right.
jam in there for a while. But
because in
interested.
terms of the Joy-Con and everything, this thing is going to be backwards compatible, so it will be, it makes sense. Like the controllers would need to be able to still function in sort of the same way to play all of that stuff, I guess. So they do need to have the detachable Joy-Cons.
well,
with the
they
motion
don't though,
control
because
and-
they could have had it so that you could connect Joy-Cons to it, even if it had the
True.
stuck-on
Yeah, that's
controls.
true.
So like, it is.
I'd imagine it'll be compatible with all the old accessories too, probably. Like, it
Hopefully.
doesn't look like any of the... I mean, every console basically has the same controller configuration, essentially, at this point anyway. So it's not like it's going to have, 4 extra new buttons on it that are going to be used in all the games.
Right.
For Switch games, for sure. But like, it looked like it had probably analog triggers was part of what was coming off of those Joy-Cons.
Oh, yeah.
Which the original did not. And obviously the original Joy-Cons, because this looks to be such a different size, won't like click onto it. And it's a different
Yes,
mechanism rather than the rail. It's like magnets or whatever.
I wonder if
they
they'll let you connect the original ones via Bluetooth or some shit like that.
I'd say so.
For, like,
big
big
I think if
multiplayer
they're making
things.
the games, if they're making the games backwards compatible, I think like they really want to it seems like mitigate the frustration of people who've maybe dipped in for the first time in a long time and been hey, get the console, you can bring all your other shit over, you can use the controllers, you can use those 8 Joy-Con that you've got, you can still play 1-2 Switch with all of them. It's just like the new hardware and
Nintendo's got a good history for that when they do it too. Like the Switch, obviously they just re-released all the Wii U games for full price basically, but when they did the Wii, like that had GameCube controller ports built into the side of it and stuff like that. Like they will go the extra mile.
And between the Wii and the Wii U, you could play everything. So I mean, they got a bad rap for it with the Switch, but they do generally tend to keep things. Well, they've had the last 2 have been like blocks of 2, right, where you've been able to.
Right,
and they needed the reset because like you can't put a CD in a handheld thing, and they weren't necessary anymore. So, it looks to be everything we've heard about. The Switch successor. But
I wonder because like what was the other speculation, or maybe it was even like said like it'll be about the power of a PS4. Does that ring a bell?
Something like that. I'd love to see what was going on with the dock as well, and like whether or not that thing might have a bit of extra capability in it, like was suggested rather than rumored, I suppose, for ages, and like
like the difference,
resolutions, things like that.
Yeah, what if that Max one is a real thing? What the differentiation between them is like? How is that the one that's like on par with the last gen? Like
more powerful.
I imagine I'll buy that one regardless because I
would guess it'd be like phones or not, but like
screen
bigger
size,
bigger
battery,
screen, which would be
it does feel like that speculation or rumor or leak or whatever it was about it being roughly on par with a PS4. I mean, that even feels like that was about 2 years ago, that rumor. So, tech comes a long way in a fairly short time. So I'd be most interested to know, like, has there been much change in what's happening with the hardware since those rumors started going around? Because I feel like that was a thing that was like quite a while ago that those specs kind of leaked or whatever it was.
That stuff does get locked down early though as well. So True. I would bet that probably hasn't changed because those chips would have been manufactured forever ago.
So
it had clearly been delayed from when they originally intended to do it. So that stuff probably won't have changed.
I'm looking at this video again. Up to 3.7 gigahertz, up to 4.8 teraflops.
I don't know what the Switch one is in terms of those numbers, but I think that rings a bell for like, PS4-ish type of thing.
Right.
And that makes, just layman intuitive sense of like, well, when the Switch came out, that was X number of years after the 360 and the PS3, and it was roughly as powerful as them. And now it's about the same time again. So,
Yep.
And hey, if it's as powerful as a PS4, that means it can run every game that's come out in the last 5 years because they've all been made for that. So
it can't do Astrobot and Final Fantasy Rebirth, and that's about it.
Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It looks like it's got rounded edges, kind of like an iPad, a current iPad, like an iPad Air or something. There is like imagery of the dock. It looks like there's like a stand so you can have it like screen up and out. Yep. So it's like, I don't know. I'm excited.
I mean, the Switch was so great and it's long in the tooth now, but it's such a cool thing. And like those, I don't have a Steam Deck or anything like that. And that form factor really does appeal to me. I know that, Ben, you've said in the past that like less your sort of thing, but I like that handheld stuff, and also just getting a new wave of first-party Nintendo games is an exciting.
It's the software, right? Yeah, I mean they've we got pretty lucky in the last year. We got a new top-down Zelda, but it does feel like they've really been holding off on the good stuff for a couple of years, like deliberately trying to stack the deck for a first year or two of a new console. So that, I mean, these leaks are, interesting enough to talk about for 15 minutes on a podcast. But the hardware stuff is like, we know that that they're not going to rock the boat with the actual look and feel and what it can do. It'll just be like, I mean, aesthetically, tastes and what they can do moves on in 7 years. But it's the video where they're showing off like, here's the 3D Mario game that we're launching it with.
That's
here's
the thing
new Mario
for me.
Kart. That's the stuff that I'm really fucking busting to see. Like,
Odyssey was so great, and then Bowser's Fury was such a cool, like, them going like, and we reckon we can go further with it. So
And
really
even
keen
if
to
it's
see
not
that.
like, it doesn't even have to be on par with current gen consoles, but just seeing what they can do with the visuals of a Mario game with just like a generation leap from what we've
relative
been used to
to
see.
itself.
Totally.
Will look is pretty exciting to imagine, and also being able to dip back into a bit of that back catalog with hopefully some improvements if it's
Maybe.
able to run stuff a bit better. I mean, I was enjoying it, but I sort of stopped myself from playing too much of Bayonetta 3 because it was having a pretty tough time running. And at that time, it really felt like the next console was just around the corner.
Right,
and I felt like,
right.
you know what? I bet this is like a victim of like potentially there was going to be a Switch Pro that could run something like this a little better. So I do think there'll be a raft of stuff that day one will have patches where it can run a bit better on the new thing. So I'm going to hold off finishing this game until then, which now I've been waiting a year and a half. So egg on my face.
Even with like custom firmware for the Switch, which I would know nothing about, but sometimes I accidentally click on the wrong YouTube video that I don't mean to and never would. But you can get a lot of what the Switch can even do is deliberately restricted in its own hardware by like is underclocked to keep the battery life up and stuff like that. So you can get Breath of the Wild running at like 1080p at 60 frames or whatever on this just basic Switch hardware. But then the battery dies after 25 minutes. So they didn't want to do that. But so, yes, the point being that it's probably pretty possible to quite easily, if you can do it on a regular Switch, upgrade those games without too much fussing around. And so like, that'd be cool.
Like you mentioned, Nox, as well, like it feels like this console should have come out a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Where there's already been stuff in train for like patches for the Switch 2, which obviously there's been even more time for even more games to get that sort of work being done in the background software-wise.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like a cool launch lineup, but also just having a first day of cracking it open where you spend an hour running around in Tears of the Kingdom again.
I was going to say, that's
a little crisper and smoother. Would be fucking great.
You know what? I'd love for them this time as well to let me put some like Netflix apps and stuff like that on that thing. Like that'd be cool to have that sort of functionality on a handheld device.
Especially if the resolution is it's tablet like, it's modern contemporary. Watching stuff on a plane, right?
Just whip that thing out as you're like, if you're going somewhere for 2 days and that's your whole sort of, well, I'm not going to need to answer an email, so I'll just take this.
Right.
That'd be pretty cool. And I will say as well, I forgot Metroid Prime 4 is still a Switch game, so that'll be out, I suppose, before the Switch 2 is out, most likely, and that'll be the thing that is the tide over, so that's cool. But hurry up.
It was a drag to kind of like officially cross that line where it was like, okay, now it's not happening this year, and we all have to keep kind of chasing our tails.
Totally. like end of September, start of October, being like, damn, I guess she ain't calling. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, at least appreciate a message from Nintendo being like, hey, look, just wasn't really feeling it. we'll always have the Switch 1, but
it's not you. I was going through some stuff. I was going through some supply chain issues.
Yeah, it's
when they on that investor call like a couple of months ago, that's where they confirmed that it'll be backwards compatible. I think that's where that happened.
Something like that,
and that seemed like a kind of interesting thing for them to not just kind of roll that out in a, without it being an official announcement video. I would have loved if they could have at least done the same thing for what the thing is fucking called, just so that we can stop calling it the quote-unquote Switch 2, the Switch success. Just give us, if you're going to make us speculate and post about the leaks and the rumours, at least just let us do it with what the actual goddamn name is.
Or if we had a cooler, work in progress name. Like, there's no NX equivalent. But I feel like some of the one other leak or whatever was saying about how it had like 2s printed on parts of the...
I think it's called the Switch 2. Like, that's what this video... it looks like official branding where it's doing the comparisons of this version.
It's been long enough now though as well that like they can't people knew the GameCube was the Dolphin or whatever, but it was enough people who were able to change to GameCube pretty easily. They've been calling it, people call this the Switch 2.
Yeah.
Well, and they're the hardest they've ever bricked it coming off a massive success was the Wii to the Wii U.
Yeah.
So they would be so like, we cannot fuck around with the messaging of this and what it is.
Yeah.
Wii
This
U is
isn't the time to
crazy.
get creative. Like, even I've
Yeah.
seen people go like, why don't they call it the Super Switch, like the Super Nintendo? Even that I think is too confusing for Johnny Public. Honestly,
That's
I
too
could see
similar
that
to the
getting-
Wii U thing, right? Of like, oh, it's just an upgrade, but I've already
Is it
got
a Pro?
Switch.
Is it still the same thing?
Yeah.
And I know the PS2 and the PS3 existed before this, but the just like 2 and 3 and 4 is so ingrained in people because of phones and whatever now.
Exactly.
that
100%.
There's
Yeah.
no sense in doing anything else.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, like using the Max thing as the like, that's the special one. It's such an Apple. It's such an ingrained in consumer behavior. It's the smart thing to do. And if they are just like forever for the next 25 to 30 years, we're making Switch 3. We're making Switch 3 Pro. Like that's the smart thing to do, I think.
Having said that, I would still love it if it was the new Switch and the big new Switch. Like
I mean-
that would that would be sick.
Yeah, if it was
Yeah.
called the Switch Tiger, or like or just like the Nintendo, fucking Panzer.
Yeah.
Panzer maybe has a
Okay.
little bit of historical.
The Nintendo Emperor.
No, totally. Like Wii
yeah.
U was just stupid because of the letter U, and it sounded like a prequel to the Switch where it's going to fucking college. But like,
Right.
If you're gonna cook anywhere, cook with the games.
Yeah.
Don't fuck around with the name of the console. You don't
Right.
have to do any weird controller shit. Stay the court. That's what people like. Really, if you're gonna get into the lab and start going off, do it with the concepts of your games. Do
Right.
it, bring back F-Zero, make a weird fucking Donkey Kong game.
give those crazy names, F-Zero, Chumbawamba 2, or
Absolutely.
whatever. Like just
Yeah.
like. Switch 2 is what it should be called, and I'm excited to see what it's actually called, which will be completely different. And,
the game
bizarre.
and Switch.
Speaking of numbers and stupid names, video cards always.
Yeah.
Video cards, necessary if you want to play games on a computer.
Apparently, yeah. Yep.
B, I can't remember if I said 1 or A first, so I'm hoping it was A. B, they're so expensive.
Yeah, it's
There's-
ridiculous.
There's no real competition in the space. There's Nvidia and there's AMD
Yeah.
as the things, and AMD is so far the distant second and viewed as the sub-optimal thing with comparative prices too.
Yeah.
That it's pretty much Nvidia's game to lose. So Intel, they already put out a graphics card a couple years ago, whenever it was, and it wasn't that well received. I don't think it ran particularly well, and the drivers had problems, and it had teething problems. They've been showing off new video cards that I would love it if there were actual competitors and different players up against the world's most highly valued company in Nvidia that could kind of have a little run at stuff. So Intel announced these 2 different cards called they're called Arc.
Yes.
They're the 570 and 580 or something like that. Point is that they're competitors to the lower end of what Nvidia offers. So the 580, I guess, is like a bit better than a 4060, but a little cheaper. And it would just be great if Intel made this work and there was some genuine competition with, because Nvidia has been talking about the 50 series cards, which will be coming out next year.
Sure.
And they're going to be wildly expensive because people want to buy them for AI purposes and things like that. Like it's a very hot, same as it was with Bitcoin mining and all that shit.
Right.
There's other options. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought it'd be interesting to I don't know when you guys will be looking at new computers, if and when. But wouldn't it be nice if there was some real competition in the space that made prices of at least one fucking thing in the world at the moment a little bit lower?
Good Lord.
Yeah. I mean, I'm I'm running a 4060 Ti, so I'm hoping that holds out a little bit longer. I mean, I'm not really like a first person shooter, like regular. So that means that I'm not often playing the most AAA graphics intensive games on a PC. I'm pretty happy having the PS5 and not upgrading that really until the PS6. So like, I can hopefully skate around, the sort of necessary upgrades for, your serious graphics heads. But yeah, if in 3 to 4 years even, these arcs have come out, because they already exist, like you said. There was that
first generation that wasn't well received, and basically the hope is more that exactly what you're saying. Like, I don't think either of you guys need to do anything because you've got perfectly good computers that will run things for at least 4 or 5 more years happily. And also, I think you guys are in the really enviable position of, like, when often we talk about, like, oh, this didn't run that well or anything, I feel like after you guys will be like, oh, I didn't really notice or care.
Yeah.
Which, what a way to live. Oh my God. It's like, when people drive and they're just like, yeah, man, I've never had road rage. I don't care what other people are doing. I think it's just easy and fine.
Takes as long as it takes.
It feels like I'm the road's biggest screamer, and you guys are like arms out the window, just vibing the whole time, surfboard on the roof, and you've never been near the water.
Yeah.
But
so the existing ones, I'm just looking it up now, because I honestly, I think this just did not come across my desk. Because I haven't needed a new one since I got, the 4060.
Yeah.
The 750, the Intel Arc, the Sparkle Intel Arc 750. This is the highest available one, the most powerful available one at the moment. It's 285 Australian dollars.
Mm-hmm. And they're lower end. They're all targeted at being competitors with NVIDIA's lower end cards.
And like you say, the ones that aren't out yet are going to be equivalent with something like what I've got currently.
Yes.
But even what I got currently, I paid several $1,000s for it, for
the whole computer overall.
No, no, because I had like a 1080 when I bought the computer. I bought a 4060 back in 2020, I believe, and that was like a few. What did that be? Like $2,000 probably.
That would have been. I don't think the 40s were out in 2020, and I think that the 4060 Ti should never have been a few $1,000s. So I think you got ripped off years later than you think.
Let's see. It must have been I think it was end of 2021.
2021 or 2 was probably around when the 41s were coming out.
I got it when Cyberpunk came out.
2023 was. Then you don't have a 4060 Ti if you got that, because they came out in 2023.
A 4060 Ti. It's what it says on the side. It's an AOR US brand.
Well, I don't know how that happened then, because they came out in 2023.
Unless it's a 3060 Ti.
It's probably a 3060 if they came out in a 2020.
Okay. Or maybe, I guess.
But this is what I'm talking about. There should be lots of different options for people who, aren't really paying attention and just want something to go in for a decent price that works okay. That's most people. And it would be great if Intel were, also Intel are one of the biggest companies in the world, and like they've had a lot of downturns recently because of shit they've done wrong with processors and things. But it'd be sick for there to be more competition in these places that are just getting gouged to hell through the fact that there's monopolies in play, essentially. But yeah, that I just thought that was sort of interesting that there's maybe more movement in that stuff because if you've got a 3060, and it'd be a 3060 Ti.
I think it must be, which would have been like what, 1,000 to $1,500 when it came out.
Maybe more like 800 or 900 or something like that even, but
which is a lot for not even the whole computer.
Exactly.
Like a component of the computer.
Exactly. Every video card costs more than a console. And the lower end ones are probably roughly equivalent, and you're only getting exactly like you say, one component. So it's just wild with the way that these things are at the moment, especially when PC gaming stuff is like more popular than it's ever been. Which is, obviously a computer can do more than a console, so if you're getting one you can do other stuff with it, but it just a more general thing, just price gouging being the way it is at the moment. It'd be nice if the probably not even realistic fake capitalist free market ideal of more competition leading to lower prices pans out, but it probably won't, because we've been lied to our whole lives, and we need to learn how to, make sure that the price of
rise up.
methylated spirits and rags doesn't increase, and then we'll be fine.
Yep. No, I'm going to give my money to the third giant corporation.
Yeah. Intel.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're fine.
The little guy. The IGA.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know. It's something I guess I pay a bit more attention to, the computer stuff, but it just like... It didn't used to be this way, and it would be so good if it's not this way again one day, but hard to tell, and hypothetically more people being able to do it. But they're just so difficult to make that you need a massive company to be the one to do it, because it's like one of the most complicated undertakings that humanity has ever participated in.
And you need to have, enough money to throw around, enough political weight to throw around to get the slave labor in Africa to mine the fucking whatever it's called.
All of the natural
cobalt.
resources involved in it and stuff. And then, the way that like stuff with tariffs and whatever. And look, I might be swimming a little further out of my depth than I'm comfortable. Like maybe I need some floaties on, but it is it is such a crazy, massive endeavor that is so interwoven with the most complicated international geopolitics and stuff.
Yeah,
and
totally.
it does feel crazy to be so engaged with that stuff purely on the level of like, well, can I have Tekken 8 be at 180 frames per second?
Right.
That's higher than any monitor that I have can do, but I'd love to be able to say that. Like,
are there any other news stories on the docket?
there was one thing that I thought maybe you'd have seen some stuff about that I just saw a thing about, and I don't know anything about this, and if it's nothing, then you tell me, but people are especially mad about Marvel Snap monetization at the moment, speaking of gouging.
Yeah, I think I saw this popped up about a week ago because they made some pretty significant changes, and there's this thing where, and I'm sure this is the case across a lot of these trading card games, but I've only played this one really with any seriousness, that cards are released in sort of batches or series, or they're given certain rankings, and that will relate to how much in-game currency you need to spend to buy them.
Yeah,
and often how much real money you can use to buy something that equates to in-game currency,
which typically you'd assume, and is the case in most things, I think, it relates to their rarity rather than their like direct power. Like in the Pokemon one, for example, it's like the shiny ones are versions of the regular cards that function the same but look prettier.
I think so. I think there is sort of an algorithm to the rarity in which they will pop up in the sort of normal train of card acquisition. But the thing with Marvel Snap is that they've totally purposefully changed the card acquisition in the game to be really related to how much time you will dedicate to moving up this certain ladder, to hit these certain points, to get this certain currency. And then there are things that you can do, like every day there is a shop with like 8 different variant cards. So just, aesthetic different versions of cards you have, where you can spend real money to buy gold to buy those cards. And if you buy like 8 of those variants, you get 2,000 tokens, and tokens are what you use to buy actually new cards that are actually rarer and have, better abilities. And they do, in Marvel Snap, they do often also equate to being more powerful.
That's the bit, right? Like that's the thing where... Okay, I think that just the link between those articles and why I looked at both of them is I'm just sick of thinking about money.
Yeah.
I'm just tired of everyone asking for so much money all the time.
And so they have really, really rigged that system in the favor of the developer getting more money. I think
that's what they're all doing at the moment.
It's really egregious. It's only people who are like the whales, the people who have been stuck inside the casino for 4 years, who are still kind of blindly accepting it, because like that's what happens. Like they're using those tactics that get you addicted and maintain that addiction. And I think a lot of people who are still have not stepped outside of that game, which like I have, like I took months off. But when you step back in with fresh eyes, you're like $130 for a digital fucking card and some fake currency. That's
24
insane.
eggs.
Exactly.
It's
but
goddamn.
So the thing that was, I think, got people most up in arms in the past couple of weeks was that they are supposed to, and they told, players that they will regularly drop some of those powerful cards from like the high rank series, series 5 down to 4, or from 4 down to 3, thereby making them cheaper to acquire, less rare to acquire randomly, all that stuff. And the most recent announcement they made, it was fuck all cards. They were shitty cards anyway. And people who'd been waiting ages potentially to spend some of this, in-game currency they'd acquired by playing the game lots rather than spending money. I think it felt like a slap in the face to a lot of those people. And
a slap in the face.
I already was off the company. I was off the developers. I already saw it as just a pretty bald-faced money-making attempt. Aside from being like a fun game. But yeah, I think it hit a
like a tipping point.
In the past couple of weeks. So
shame.
Yeah. Maybe it makes them get their act together and make their game a bit fairer. But I kind of suspect that they're at the point in that a mobile game's life cycle where players start dropping off because they realize what a waste of time it's been, how much money they've wasted, and they're just wringing every last cent out of the people who are still, dipping in every day.
If the diehards are going to keep paying it, then if they're still making some good money off it, then it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Oh, well. Who cares? But
goes on.
Hey, guess what? There are other options. If you want to still be a dorky nerd who would play a card game on a phone, that sort of thing, but you want to spend less money on a computer, the one with a video card and all that shit would require you to spend, there's a whole world out there.
I have been diving into the world of cheap, non-Windows, non-Linux, right? Raspbian or Raspberry Pi OS is its own OS.
Yeah, I don't know the relationship between those because it's often that there's some fork of Linux or whatever, but I don't know enough about that to say.
I think, Debian maybe is a fork of Linux and Raspberry. Anyway, I bought a Raspberry Pi, but what I'm going to do is make one of those crazy cyber decks that you see occasionally on what was the gadget? Lifehacker and shit like that. Those websites where or The Verge, like, hey, this crazy person made a cyber deck from Neuromancer.
Yep.
Well, this dumb bitch is going to try and make his own one of those.
Hell yes.
And so there are examples out there. I'm sure, Nox, you've had a bit more experience with because the Raspberry Pi world is already this crazy big complicated community of people using them to make their own touchscreen car, entertainment consoles. They're making fucking control panels for their smart fridge. They're they can be used and without even screens. You can use one as a media server. They're really, really handy little computer chips.
Yeah, you can do lots of relatively simple because they're not that powerful, but also pretty complicated tasks where, yes, most often people use them as a central smart home hub.
Yeah.
Or, the most interaction I've had with them has been about emulation stuff, which you can also do a ton of. That sort of thing with them. I never really got too into any of the hey, I'll fucking put this on my lawnmower like I'm the dad from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and just be fucking crazy about it. But they're very affordable, and there is, like you say, a very active community who are using them to make a ton of things. But they tend to be single-purpose computers. You get them to do a thing, and it sits there doing that.
Yeah, which I am kind of getting more to grips with now. But there, you can, because often there are just a boot image that is one, like you say, one purpose thing. You can boot this computer up as the RetroPie, which is an emulation machine, and you can, there are various images you can download where it's it's got RetroPie, it's got pre-installed every game on the Game Boy, every game on the NES, that kind of stuff exists. You can dual boot them, you can have ones that boot up into the Raspberry Pi operating system and use it, as a media center. You can watch stuff on YouTube on it. You can stream stuff, from VLC to a Chromecast or whatever. There are, a lot of lot of uses for it that, yeah, it's very handy having this separate completely. It's very small, the sort of Raspberry Pi with its sort of like little board of connectors and stuff.
It's like the size of a wallet.
Yeah.
That sort of size, like a pocket size type of thing.
Pretty much, yeah. And so, yeah, there's been different versions over the years. I got the latest one with 8 gig of RAM because I kind of want to push it as far as I can. Maybe, you know, playing sort of games from PS2, 3, you know, like something like that.
You can do like Dreamcast on there and like not every game for those sorts of things, but like the PSP and whatever. Like you can get a lot of stuff running on there.
And so, yeah, the current version, it has like 4 USB outs. It has 2 micro HDMI outs. It has an Ethernet cable connector. You can connect a display via HDMI or USB, or also like one of those ribbon things like straight into the back of the chip. It's very versatile. And so, yeah, I've been like seeing these really cool sort of concept computers that are like, you buy like a hard camera case and then you like fit in the screen, and then in the bottom it's like a keyboard, and you can either do like under the keyboard is all the tech stuff, or behind the screen is all the tech stuff.
Some shit that like Ving Rhames would have had in a movie.
Totally.
It's
real like Matrix sequel where it's like, yeah, we don't have to use the phone anymore. We've got a portable one, and it's like this kind of thing.
And it's always so cool. Plus, they're delicious. But like it's all that stuff has always seemed so cool to me. And then I don't know if you've had a similar experience or if you're going to sort of dedicate more to it. That I couldn't think of anything to actually do with it. Like it, you know, you can set it up to do all this shit, and it can run your fucking curtains in the morning, and it's an automatic and whatever. But like most things can also do that.
Yeah.
Like
I think mainly for me it is in place of a expensive Lego set.
Sure. Yes. And that's the best use for almost anything.
Yeah, I've because I used to build and like fuck around with computers. You know, when I was a kid, like we would often get hand-me-down computers, and so, you know, I'd be digging in there with Dad. We'd be like trying to find, you know, cheap RAM that we can upgrade. Like I've liked tinkering with the hardware stuff, but the most I've done with it in the past like 10 years is put a new graphics card in my computer that I got someone else to build for me. So I'm enjoying the idea, and I've started, like I've got a lot of the parts already. Just fucking around with this stuff and seeing what I'm capable of doing with it.
One cool thing that I think maybe I'll look at thinking about again, but like you can take one of these and like attach it to like one of those old like type printers and have it be like a wireless printer, but for that thing.
Yes.
Or like you can have this as a go-between in like one of those, you know, the old iMacs. I think they look so fucking cool, and with the CRT, there's a way to get this in one of them where you can basically get that thing to have an HDMI port or whatever.
Right.
Have that right. So maybe I'm fucking in trouble now too.
I've seen a lot of there's some like great videos on YouTube of people taking like a Commodore 64 that doesn't work anymore and carefully taking it apart, the case, removing the electronics, putting a Raspberry Pi inside, getting some cheap speakers, you know, chucking because it's got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on the, you know, computer chip already, so you can like buy a touch screen or just a cheap LCD screen, and you can turn a Commodore 64 into a functional retro games computer that has 20,000 games on it and play them with a 8-bit Bluetooth or wireless controller. Like, all of that stuff is so attractive to me as a tinkering project.
Yeah, exactly. Most people have a computer that can do more stuff than this already,
right? But
that isn't the point. It's to do a little fun project.
Totally.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, a lot of people also, the concept of them is they'll build a like a portable computer that can serve as its own web server that is like a doomsday device of like, if everything goes down, I've got batteries that'll last for days. I've got offline maps. I've got all of this stuff where, you know, even if it's as simple as the power goes out and you want to have something to, you know, watch some files from a YouTube, from a USB drive on. Like it can be as simple as something like that.
I mean, you say that, but surely the overlap between preppers and Raspberry Pi users isn't that? It'd be almost all. Yeah, cool. Oh man, they're cool as little emulation things too. People,
exactly. Yeah,
like, that's probably the most relevant thing that people who are listening to this might want to look at. But they're a relatively cheap way to get like a dedicated emulation thing going. And yeah, depending on what you want to do with that, or like what consoles you want to play, it's a good option.
Yeah,
and it's a pretty simple one.
So yeah, what I have now, which is like a 7-inch LCD touchscreen.
Mine's 9 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently,
I got one of those Maxes.
The video's just as good to watch on a 7 inches or 9 inch. They can't tell the difference.
No, it's not. Some people say it's about the motion clarity, the hertz, but it isn't. It's all size.
So I've got a screen. I've got the Raspberry Pi. I've got the power pack, which you have to buy separately. But it's like all of this stuff is like USB-C or USB. Like it's all super, super like, future protected. And like I've got a Bluetooth, Logitech mouse. I'm getting a keyboard as well, but there's an on-screen keyboard for Raspberry Pi. So I just connected it and I'm already fucking around on it. And it doesn't even exist in like a case or anything. So...
The wide world of computers.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Hey, speaking of old games, one of them, and you can't argue this, Silent Hill 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, here's the way in which you could argue it. It also came out very recently. I never got around to playing it, but I've sort of been looking at stuff from this year that I thought, what did I miss that maybe I should have a little bit more of a go of. So I played a bit of Silent Hill 2, the remake.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Any questions?
Yeah, a few.
Yeah, I've got
Did you play the original?
No, I'd never played any. I played like a little bit of the first Silent Hill,
right,
and maybe some of a demo of 3 or something, but almost no Silent Hill history or baggage for me. So this is pretty coming in fresh for me, and I'm liking it.
All right,
it's okay. It's very much in the mold of the recent Resident Evil remakes, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
Just in terms of like the controls are similar. You're doing a lot of the same sort of walking around in an atmospheric place. I think the big difference is probably similar to when these games are out at the time. Silent Hill 2 is less focused on the more combat-y, action-y parts of it. The Resident Evil remakes especially, they're horror games and whatever, but they're action games, basically.
Yeah. A lot of running and shooting.
The survival part of it is not really that much of a factor for most of the game. Whereas this... That's kind of also the case, but just at least in the atmosphere, it's doing a much creepier job than those. It's a lot more unsettling in its vibe and everything. Where when you do actually get into a fight with anything, it's over pretty quick and it's pretty simple, and like you're dodging in a sort of arcadey way where like these creepy looking enemies, they basically have a couple of attacks that they'll chuck at you and you learn them and then you can dodge them to the side. So it's still. It's not an action game. It's not. You're not running away from every encounter and everything, because like
right, it's not just puzzles or something.
There's a lot of puzzles in there, but like the first weapon you get is like a board with nails on it, and you can beat almost everything to death. And later on, there are some enemies that are less takedownable, and you get some guns later and stuff like that. But yeah, if you played those Resident Evil remakes, you kind of know a lot of what you're in for, with like a different tone and mood and pace, I guess. And that pace is cool. Like the puzzles are good enough. They're sort of interesting. It's a lot of that, like, this key needs a certain type of this keyhole. Got to find that key. But there's a weird machine over here that you got to push some buttons on. But how do you know what the buttons do? You got to go to this other place and have a look at the manual. And
yeah, I changed the password yesterday. It's my friend's birthday, and then you find the note that says "Happy Birthday."
Oh, some weird guy came in here looking for a coin, and then he took the coin to this other place. I don't know what he's doing with that.
All right.
It is a lot of that sort of stuff, but with like a cool, creepy vibe where, you're in the town of Silent Hill and it's covered in fog and there's weird shit everywhere and you're looking for your wife and it's like some strange version of like a limbo or afterlife or something like that probably, and you can it's not that fussed about creating a like plot as much as a story with a mood and like and that all is delivered really well. Like it looks great, the sound design is fantastic, like some really creepy stuff going on, and like you've got a little radio that will start hissing with static the closer you get to an enemy, and that is super cool. Like that really gets you worried.
Yeah.
It looks pretty good. Doesn't run super well. I'm playing it on my computer, and hey, we just talked about it. We all know all about computers.
Oh yeah.
But it does look good, especially in the design. Like the city or the town looks super tangible, and you feel very creeped out, and there's a lot of detail all over the place, so that you're getting a convincing sense of place that helps when the whole thing is based around making a place feel threatening.
Yeah.
These are the guys and girls who made The Medium, which we played.
Bloober team.
Yeah, that was like a year ago, or like it was last year.
Couple years now. Yeah, 22 maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe 23 early, but like. Yeah, I think that this, I mean, they're obviously drawing from source material. I'm enjoying this more than I did The Medium, which I kind of liked.
Yeah.
And they definitely had a lot of that sort of atmosphere. And guess how the last part of that word is spelled. That atmosphere down. Oh, no. Now I'm scared again. The ghosts from Silent Hill showed up. It's nothing that... And look, this is a 20-plus-year-old game now that was already a take on the existing Resident Evil. But I guess that's a knock, is that it's nothing that, like, unique. Sure. Even though the tone is effective and it has its own character to it, what you're actually doing, pretty explored territory in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But it's done satisfyingly here, and if you're a fan of that, there's not that many games like that. So
I was getting Alan Wake vibes when you were talking about sort of, the puzzle stuff.
Yeah. Alan Wake kind of fits into this similar category. I think Silent Hill is a lot more, is less actiony than Alan Wake, certainly, too.
And less plot heavy as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's a plot kind of going forward, but it's very, it's focusing a lot more on theme and mood rather than, like, beats. There was some other fucking thing I was going to say about it. It seems cool. I think I'm going to probably finish it. I don't know if, playing it because we'll be doing Game of the Year stuff now. I don't know if it's going to end up being really super relevant to that necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think it's a pretty satisfying and like well-made remake of this game that, I wonder what it's like if you have affection for that game from the time. It seems as though this is pretty cool. Oh, yeah. You can smash a bunch of shop windows and car windows with your bat.
Ooh.
And that's super fun. I've been smashing every cop car window I've seen, and I'm loving that.
Okay. That might be the most appealing thing you've said about it so far.
I can see through the window and see that there aren't any bullets there for me to pick up, but I'm smashing them anyway.
Yeah, it has. We've had a few people in the Discord mention, like, this is a great game. This is one of the games of the year. You guys, like... Not like you guys should cover it out of obligation, but like you guys might like it. So
I do like it, and I think it's just that it's a solid, well-made game that doesn't ring any particular like special bells for me, I guess. And like I preferred those Resident Evil remakes, maybe because I had some affinity for the original thing, or maybe because the pace of the action was a little more fun to my tastes or whatever. Yeah,
because I never played really... I think I played some of Resident Evil 1 back in the day, but I never was a fan of that franchise until like 7, and then I was really keen to play 2 and 3 remakes and loved them, and 4 as well. There isn't necessarily the same compulsion in me to give this a try, even if it's like a good, solid, well-made game.
Yeah.
I maybe it's just because it's not as big of a cultural touch point for people.
It's also for as similar as they are. They are very different games in a way too, where the pace of this is so different. There's a lot more plotting. This is a lot more about like a slow burn tension, I suppose. And there are action moments and like you are shooting things and whatever. It's just that, yeah, the whole vibe of it is very different to Resident Evil's like B-movie, zombie, whatever thing. Silent Hill is a lot more like some strange old videotape that has a shit internet rumor that it's haunted or whatever.
Right.
Like it's that type of movie if you were going to compare the two as... Which, you know, is appealing in its own way, but I think just less exciting.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm still liking it, and it's solid and it's well made. So yeah, it's it's cool. You know, I'm all right. It's fine.
Not every game has to be 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
It's literally impossible.
But it's fine. I haven't had an it's fine for a while. I don't think, and this one's fine.
Yeah. It's fine of the year.
Okay. And do you feel like your experience of having lost your wife in a mysterious town called Quiet Village and having to battle with your own inner demons has any impact on your appreciation of this game?
Yeah.
I like to pride myself on maintaining a level of professional separation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I will say I miss her, and I will never return to that town again. That I'm pretty sure is alive.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Well, props to you.
Well, that is going to do us for another week here on Filthy Casuals. Thank you for joining us. filthycasuals.com.au. Get on the Patreon. You can support the show on there. Very much appreciated by all of us.
Oh, yeah.
Those of you that are on there, you get a bonus show every week that we do. All sorts of extra content on there for you on the various different levels. So go check that out if you're not on there already. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time. And as we say here at the end of every episode of Filthy Casuals.
Thanks for listening on your Raspberry Pi podcast device. And if you are... Congratulations, man! What a nerdy life you've got. In a good way.
Yeah.
Said positively.